The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Good morning. I'm John David Wells. Today is Monday. It's the 28th day of August, year of our Lord, 2023. What do we do here? We report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. We de-propagandize the mainstream media product. We make commentary. That's not news. Commentary is simply opinion, yours and mine. And so we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. We are starting with the front page. It's a digest of news that we missed over the weekend or since the last broadcast. There was a serious shooting. It was terrible. It was tragic. 3 black people killed by a 21-year-old racist. This from USA Today. Hundreds of people gathered Sunday to remember and mourn the loss of 3 black people fatally shot in what authorities say is a racist attack in Jacksonville, Florida. Authorities say the suspect, a 21-year-old white man who wore a tactical vest carrying an AR-15 style rifle and a handgun bearing a swastika, opened fire at Dollar General store in the predominantly black neighborhood of Newtown on Saturday, killing 2 men and a woman. This, according to Jacksonville Sheriff T.K. Waters. He identified the victims as Angela Michael Carr. She was 52. A.J. Laguerre, 19 years of age, and Gerald Gallion, 29 years of age. Quote, "This is a community that has suffered time and time again. So many times this is where we end up," said Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan. "This is something that should not and must not continue to happen in our community." Following the shooting, the gunman turned the weapon on himself and took his own life. President Biden, as reported by USA Today, mourned a shooting in Jacksonville, Florida, in which 3 people were killed, saying hate must have no safe harbor in the United States. Even as we continue searching for answers, we must clearly and forcefully say that white supremacy has no place in America. This in prepared comments on yesterday. Out of National Pulse, the Ukraine prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, has accused the Bidens of bribery. The former Ukrainian prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, believes that he was fired as a result of President Joe Biden's pressure on the Ukrainian government and says that Biden and his son Hunter were accepting Ukrainian bribes in connection with Burisma, the Ukrainian holdings firm for which Hunter Biden and his former best friend, Devon Archer, acted as executives. Shokin was fired in 2016 by then Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko. He told Fox News in an interview with Brian Kilmeade Saturday evening, quote, "I have said repeatedly in my previous interviews that Poroshenko fired me at the insistence of then Vice President Biden because I was investigating Burisma. There were no complaints whatsoever and no problems with how I was performing my job, but because pressure was repeatedly put on then Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko, this is what ended up in him firing me," said Shokin. The GOP has gotten a strong message from Donald Trump. This from Newsmax. In a Sunday post on Truth Social, Donald Trump called on House Republicans to commence an impeachment inquiry, accusing President Joe Biden of engaging in corrupt activities. The Republicans in Congress, though well-meaning, keep talking about an impeachment inquiry on crooked Joe Biden. Look, the guy got bribed, he paid people off, and he wouldn't give $1 billion to Ukraine unless they got rid of the prosecutor. Biden is a stone-cold crook. The text went on, quote, "You don't need a long inquiry to prove it. It's already proven. These lowlifes impeached me twice, I won, and indicted me 4 times for nothing. Either impeach the bum or fade into oblivion," said President Trump. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has thus far restrained himself or refrained from committing to an impeachment vote or outlining a potential timeline for action. For her part, 2024 presidential candidate Nikki Haley is warning about a future Vice President Harris presidency. This from Fox News. Former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley blasted the prospect of Vice President Kamala Harris becoming a commander-in-chief if Democrats walk away with a win in 2024. She warned Fox News anchor Maria Bartiromo on Sunday. The notion should, quote, send a chill up every American's spine, unquote. The former South Carolina governor, in her appearance, cautioned against electing former President Donald Trump, who faces multiple indictments and looks at a series of lengthy and distracting legal battles. Elsewhere in politics, this having to do with our schools, The Hill reports that 2024 GOP candidates are calling for the end of the Department of Education. Multiple Republican presidential candidates made it clear this week's debate that the Department of Education is in danger if any of them are elected. Let's shut down the head of the snake. The Department of Education, said Vivek Ramaswamy, take that $80 billion, put it in the hands of parents across this country. Conservatives see the department, which has more than 4,400 employees, and in its current form dates back to 1979, after the first being established in 1867, as a prime example of Washington meddling in American lives. Out of the states, in Colorado, a Colorado public school diversity teacher said in private emails she was struggling with the urge not to, quote, burn things down, unquote, which did not represent equity. Those things that did not represent her beliefs should be burned down. This, according to records reviewed by Fox News. Casey Menninger is a diversity teacher in the Jefferson County Public School District's Foster K-8 school. Menninger was involved in crafting curriculum for other teachers to present to their class. Menninger wanted classes to be focused on, quote, bad things done by white people. Also out of Colorado, from Fox News, a Marxist teacher from Colorado who called for a forceful cultural revolution against whiteness was voted in by Democrats to fill an open state House of Representatives seat over the weekend. Tim Hernandez was selected as a state representative for the Denver area on Saturday by a committee of Democrats tasked with filling the vacant seat after its incumbent, Serena Gonzalez Gutierrez, was elected to the Denver City Council. Hernandez worked at Aurora West Preparatory Academy in the Aurora Public School District, this according to a website from May. Their staff list has since been scrubbed. It was unclear if he continues to work in the Colorado district. A sign in his classroom called for, quote, dismantling white systems. Fox News reports that Hawaiian officials are attributing the case of catastrophic wildfires to alleged failures from the state's main power utility company and downed power lines this week after Democrats blamed the disaster on global warming. In a lawsuit filed Thursday of last week, the government of Maui County, Hawaii, alleged Hawaiian Electric Company, HECO, and its subsidiaries failed to properly power down live electrical equipment amid a red flag windstorm earlier this month. Due to this failure, downed power lines operated by the utility company sparked a series of deadly fires on the island, according to the lawsuit. The lawsuit also alleges that the defendants acted negligently by failing to power down their electrical equipment despite a National Weather Service red flag warning on August 7th. This from Maui County in a release announcing the lawsuit. Elsewhere in state news out of Texas, this from Newsmax. The Navy SEAL who gained fame when he publicly claimed to have been the person who killed Osama bin Laden has been arrested in Frisco, Texas. Robert J. O'Neill, the 47-year-old former member of SEAL Team 6, was arrested in Frisco, charged with misdemeanor assault and public intoxication. This according to a report from the New York Post over the weekend. Out of politics, the Biden alcohol czar may have a message for beer drinkers. This from Fox News. President Biden's alcohol czar says Americans may be told by officials to have no more than 2 beers per week. The director of the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, the NIAAA, George Koob told the Daily Mail on Thursday the U.S. may follow Canada's footsteps on alcohol guidelines. Currently, American guidelines recommend that men limit themselves to 2 drinks per day, while women should only have 1. The American recommendations are up for review in 2025. Speaking of Canada, this also from Fox News, Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly reportedly stated in an interview that Canada has been working on a, quote, game plan, unquote, for the outcome of America's upcoming presidential elections. Joly was first elected to represent the Ahuntsic-Cartierville region of Canada in the House of Commons in 2015. Since then, she has risen to become Canada's foreign affairs minister, has been named a young global leader by the World Economic Forum. In late 2022, a piece in Politico speculated that Joly, as a Trudeau protege, might one day have his job, and has come up with a formulation just in case America elects what they call an authoritarian presidential regime. Out of sports, USA Today, the Little League World Series. When it mattered most, Luis Lappy shined like a major league star. In a tie game in the final inning, the Little League World Series championship game, the El Segundo, California shortstop connected to send the ball past the left field wall for a walk-off home run to win the title in a moment that will last his lifetime. It was a thrilling end to another magnificent tournament in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, as Curaçao came back from a 4-run deficit in the top of the 5th inning with a grand slam to tie the game at 5 apiece. But ultimately, California held off Curaçao 6-5, August 27th, to put an end to the thrilling 11-day tournament. Also, gymnast Simone Biles has won her 8th USA Gymnastics title. She's still on top after a decade. The gymnastics star won her record 8th U.S. championship last night, 10 years after she first ascended to the top of her sport as a teenage prodigy. Biles is now 26. She's a newlywed, considered perhaps the greatest gymnast of all time. Posted an all-around 2-day total of 118.40, 4 points clear of runner-up Shalise Jones. Florida junior Leanne Wong claimed third, bolstering her chances of making a third straight world championship team. Biles is all but assured of returning to the gym, where she captured her first world title in 2013 over the course of 2 electric nights at the SAP Center, the SAP Center. She served notice that after a 2-year break following the Tokyo Olympics in gymnastics, there is one referred to as the GOAT, and then there is everyone else. And finally, in the front page today, the great Bob Barker has passed away. He spent 35 years as the MC of The Price is Right. Bob Barker changed only one appreciable way. He stopped dyeing his hair in the early 1990s, 2 decades into the game show's long and storied run. Nearly everything else about Barker, his tanned and lithe looks, his avuncular ease with contestants, his witty rapport with the audience remained the same. Even the CBS set where Price is Right had been taped 5 times a week beginning in 1972 didn't change much. The same mustard, avocado, tangerine color scheme. The same Smithsonian-worthy showcase showdown wheel. Barker died at the age of 99, according to his publicist, Roger Neal. It is with profound sadness that we announce the world's greatest MC who ever lived, Bob Barker, has left us. Neal said Saturday in a statement provided to USA Today. Barker died of natural causes at his longtime Hollywood Hills home, according to publicist Neal. That is the front page for Monday, August 28th, 2023. More of the Wells Report coming up in just a couple of moments as we go through the news. We analyze it for fact and bias. We make commentary and we debate. And every now and then, things fall down on purpose. What am I discussing? Well, a very famous Pennsylvania bridge has met its demise. We'll have that for you coming up in just a couple of moments. Our telephone number, 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship.
Call 877-655-6870. That's 877-655-6870. 877-655-6870.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives.
I'm a divorced single mom, and my ex-husband left me and the kids with a lot of unpaid bills, including unpaid taxes. I was really starting to show my stress on my kids because the IRS had sent me a letter demanding a huge payment from me. I couldn't afford it. So then the IRS was threatening to garnish my wages. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. That would have put me over the edge financially.
It truly seemed hopeless, but then a friend at work told her to call the tax relief line.
The people at the tax relief line, they told me about something called innocent spouse relief. They worked it out so that all of the taxes from my ex are not my problem. I don't know how that works, and I don't care. All I care about is that I don't owe the IRS a dime, and they are not going to take my paycheck.
Even if it seems hopeless, you should call the number on your screen right now. There is absolutely no cost for the call or the consultation. You are under no obligation. If you are worried that the IRS could garnish your wages, seize your assets, even take your home, call us right now. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.
This is the Wells Report. A dear, dear friend of mine, a broadcast colleague for decades, Nathan Ailes from New Orleans, Louisiana, has just joined us. And this is a special coded message to Nathan Ailes. You garbage. You are. You garbage. Anyway, I remember one time I was on the air with Nathan. And he said something that just absolutely slayed me on the air. I just was reduced to helpless laughter. Nathan, it's great to see your name and your face, man. Thanks for joining us. The Iowa Department of Transportation is not in Pennsylvania. I just wanted to point that out for whatever reason. I said that this was a Pennsylvania bridge. No. It's the Iowa Department of Transportation bridge that's on I-74. It goes across the Mississippi River, which, by the way, terminates in New Orleans. So see how everything works together, carefully choreographed ballet. Oh, excuse me. The bridge came down. Actually, the deck of the bridge had already been removed. But what had happened is that they decided to take down the towers. And this was spectacular. I think you ought to check this out here on the Wells Report. Boom. Yeah, 2 towers came down all at the same time. It was amazing. They blew off the cables, and the whole thing came tumbling down into the mighty Mississippi. Wow. Just goes to show you that no matter how much you paid for your bridges, they all fall down at some point. I think this is a farther away angle. There's another tower on the other side of that, and they both came down together. I don't know what they're going to do with those massive bridge pilings, but whatever it is, it's going to be interesting to see how they do it. And yeah, okay. So I just discovered something, by the way, Dirk. Take a note on the video switch, okay? Would you do that, please? I sure would appreciate it. Anyway, that being said, the bridge, the main navigation channel will be closed off to all river traffic for about 24 hours. In June, the Iowa DOT removed parts of the old I-74 bridge in the first phase of demolition. The new bridge was built because of increased traffic volume, which is always a good thing to do. The westbound bridge, Illinois to Iowa, opened in 1935. The eastbound bridge, Iowa to Illinois, opened in 1960. This kind of follows the same sort of thing as the Greater New Orleans Bridge across that same river. There was one bridge, and it was a constant source of major traffic jams every single day as people who lived on the other side of the Mississippi wanted to get home. They called it, it's magnificent. Anyway, what happened was they opened up another bridge. They built it to the exact spec of the first bridge. So these 2 twin bridges, the Greater New Orleans Bridge is amazing. By the way, the new bridge was built in July of 2017. Fully opened in December of 2021, the project cost about $1 billion. That included engineering, design, and construction costs. And at the end of the day, after the new bridge was built, it was simply in the way. It was simply in the way. And so they took it down with explosives in a mighty blast that cleared the main towers. And once again, what they're going to do is they're going to go ahead and take those pilings out so that the river navigation can get back to what it does best, which is supply an amazing transit for much of the Midwest's, the Middle America's river commerce. So thanks very much for joining us. By the way, if you find value in this broadcast, please do me a favor, share it with your friends. Share it with your friends. Give us a thumbs up. Those are important things. That really helps our statistics. Also, if you'd like to spread it around, share with your friends, subscribe is a good thing. Help us out. Support the report. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172. As we get your week going, Monday, August 28th, we will be back with more coming up in just a couple of moments.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship.
Call 877-655-6870. That's 877-655-6870. 877 655 6870.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives.
I'm a divorced single mom, and my ex-husband left me and the kids with a lot of unpaid bills, including unpaid taxes. I was really starting to show my stress on my kids because the IRS had sent me a letter demanding a huge payment from me. I couldn't afford it. So then the IRS was threatening to garnish my wages. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. That would have put me over the edge financially.
It truly seemed hopeless, but then a friend at work told her to call the tax relief line.
The people at the tax relief line, they told me about something called innocent spouse relief. They worked it out so that all of the taxes from my ex are not my problem. I don't know how that works, and I don't care. All I care about is that I don't owe the IRS a dime, and they are not going to take my paycheck.
Even if it seems hopeless, you should call the number on your screen right now. There is absolutely no cost for the call or the consultation. You are under no obligation. If you are worried that the IRS could garnish your wages, seize your assets, even take your home, call us right now. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. This was tragic, sad, even horrific news. It happened over the weekend in Jacksonville, Florida. USA Today is reporting a white man wearing a mask and carrying a gun painted with a swastika killed 3 black people inside a Dollar General store Saturday in what authorities described as a racially motivated attack in a primarily African-American neighborhood. Jacksonville Sheriff T.K. Waters said the attack was racially motivated by the shooter, identified as Ryan Christopher Palmeter. He was 21 years old. He entered the store shortly after 1 p.m. and opened fire. The gunman, who wore a tactical vest while carrying an AR-style rifle and a handgun bearing a swastika, targeted 2 men and a woman. The suspect then shot and killed himself at the store. Although others were fired upon inside and outside the store, Waters said that no one else was injured in the attack. Waters, the sheriff, said that he hated black people. That's a quote. After reviewing racist writings, the gunman had left for his family. This, according to federal law enforcement and at least one media outlet. The shooting occurred at a Dollar General store in Newtown, a predominantly black neighborhood of Jacksonville, Florida. The store is also near Edward Waters University, a small historic black university with about 1,000 students. Apparently, the shooter went there first and then went to the Dollar General store. The sheriff went on to say, quote, "This is a dark day in Jacksonville's history. There is no place for hate in this community. I'm sickened by this cowardly shooter's personal ideology." On Saturday, Edward Waters University issued a safety alert on X, the social media platform formerly known as Twitter, notifying students and staff of fatal shooting had occurred off campus. After the shooting, the university was placed on lockdown for several hours. The university said in a statement that shortly before the shooting took place, a campus security officer saw the suspect near the school's library, asked him to identify himself. When the suspect refused to do so, he was asked to leave, and he returned to his vehicle. Waters said the suspect was seen putting on a tactical vest and a mask before leaving. He added it is unknown if he had originally planned to attack the school. If you see a guy going to his personal vehicle and putting on tactical gear after refusing to identify himself, call the cops. More about that in just a moment. I can't tell you what his mindset was while he was there, but he did go there to the university. The university had said no students and faculty were involved in the incident. Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, who is running for the GOP nomination for president, who has loosened gun laws in Florida, this, by the way, from USA Today, and that is bias, who had antagonized civil rights leader by deriding wokeness, was loudly booed as he addressed a vigil for 3 black people killed over the weekend. DeSantis promised to aid the victims' families and to Edward Waters University, the state's oldest historic black college, where the gunman first stopped to change before going to the store. His office would announce details this morning, he told the crowd. Quote, "You're not going to target HBCUs and get away with it. We're going to hold you accountable. We're not going to let it happen." DeSantis faced criticism from the crowd as groups booed him immediately upon taking the microphone. Jacksonville City Council member Jacoby Pittman, who organized the vigil, stepped in to tell the crowd to let him speak. "If the governor wanted to come here and he's bringing gifts, you all know I'm taking those gifts because we've been through enough already, and I don't want it to go through no more," unquote. Palmer had driven to Jacksonville from neighboring Clay County, where he lived with his parents, according to Waters. Authorities believe that he committed the shooting because it was the 5th anniversary of another Jacksonville incident where a man opened fire during a video game tournament, killing 2 people before fatally shooting himself. Around the time of the attack, Palmer had texted his father and told him to check his computer. There, his father found racist writings, a suicide note, and a will. The writings, according to Waters, clearly showed the suspect hated black people. The family alerted authorities, but the shooting had already begun, said Waters. Palmer used a Glock handgun and an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle that were purchased legally earlier this year. The sheriff added the gunman acted alone. There's absolutely no evidence the shooter is a part of any larger group. According to Waters, the suspect had also been involved in a 2016 domestic violence incident that did not lead to an arrest. Palmer was involuntarily committed for a 72-hour mental health examination the following year. Police identified the victims as 52-year-old Angela Michelle Carr, 19-year-old Arnold Joseph A.J. Laguerre Jr., and 29-year-old Gerald Deshawn Gallion. Waters said the investigation remains ongoing. The FBI was assisting in the sheriff's office investigation. The incident is also being investigated by the U.S. Department of Justice. Quote, "No person in this country should have to live in fear of hate-fueled violence, and no family should have to grieve the loss of a loved one to bigotry and hate. This was Attorney General Merrick B. Garland in a statement. One of the Justice Department's first priorities upon its founding in 1870 was to bring justice to white supremacists who used violence to terrorize Black Americans. That remains our urgent charge today. Hundreds of people gathered yesterday, at prayer vigils in church in frustration and exhaustion to mourn the racist attack. Jacoby Pittman, a Jacksonville City Councilwoman who had represented the neighborhood where the shooting happened, stepped in to ask the crowd to listen. It ain't about parties today. A bullet don't know a party. She was talking about political parties. Gallion attended St. Paul Missionary Baptist Church in Jacksonville. Bishop John Guns told the crowd he was the 33rd murder victim in the 27 years Guns had been there. Quote, in 2 weeks, I have to preach a funeral of a man who should still be alive, Guns said. He was not a gangster. He was not a thug. He was a father who gave his life to Jesus and was trying to get it together. I wept in church today like a baby because my heart is tired. We are exhausted. Self-governance requires self-discipline. There are people who are off the scale bad, the evil ones, the evil doers, as formerly called by former President George W. Bush. These evildoers are amongst us. The self-discipline that I refer to is the self-discipline to when you identify someone like this, and this person is spending a lot of time purchasing guns, et cetera, keep your eyes on him. People knew this guy was a racist. People knew this guy was dangerous. A domestic violence attack. All of these things come together in this tragedy. If you have someone in your family that is simply racist, speaks in violent terms, you need to make sure that you do something from a family standpoint before the United States government steps in and does it for you. If you know somebody like this, keep your eyes on them. Don't be afraid to drop a dime. Now look, the Second Amendment to me is vitally important, just as it is vitally important to every American. The very idea that people would, say, for example, listen to a government telling you to turn in your weapons and disarm yourself all the while they are continuing to be armed is absurd on its face. On the other hand, we, the people of the United States, must identify those among us that are willing to act violently, murderously on others based on the color of their skin. Good heavens. Could there be anything more primitive, more degenerate, more depraved than doing something like that? The answer is no. But if you're seeing somebody that's behaving oddly, let's put it this way. I mean, I am a soldier. I have that equipment. But I don't keep it with me in my car. I don't, unless I'm being deployed somewhere that requires that particular garb. That's just not what we do. But if somebody is clearly disturbed, then take proper steps. Take proper steps. My father, who was at least a Democrat, and in his later years, pretty stridently liberal, was a guy who had several weapons for my grandfather. My grandfather specified that those weapons would come to me. One was a Marlin 30-30. The other one was a .22 target pistol that my grandfather carried with him virtually every day of his life. And Dad kept those away from me because he did not agree that I should have children in my house that were around weapons. I was very, very careful with my weapons. always have been, always will be, because that carries a huge responsibility. But I respected my dad's decision. He was doing what he thought was the right thing to do. Just before he died, he gave those weapons to me. Colton, the child in my house, had spent countless hours with me as we cleaned weapons, and basically I used the NRA Eddie the Eagle teaching platform to teach Colton about weapons. And because I demystified it and so on, Colton had absolutely no problems whatsoever leaving the things alone. He's not much of a shooter. I've taken him hunting a couple of times, and it's not what he likes to do. Again, something I completely respect on his part. But families need to come together. Families need to come together and make sure that those among them are not so corrosive in what is such plainly primitive behavior as racism. Racism plus guns plus tactical gear equals strong oversight. It absolutely does. And then when you add a domestic violence complaint, well, what more do you need? What more do you need? President Biden, for his part, immediately took the opportunity to start talking about white supremacy. 3 people killed Saturday afternoon, etc. And the president responded with this in a prepared statement. Even as we continue to search for answers, we must clearly and forcefully say that white supremacy has no place in America. White supremacy has no place in America. None. The two men and one woman killed in the attack. The president noted that the shooting came on the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington, one of the most important civil rights demonstrations of the 20th century, maybe the most important civil rights demonstration in the history of this nation. Quote, "We must refuse to live in a country where black families are going to the store and black students are going to school living in fear of being gunned down because of the color of their skin. Silence is complicity, and we must not remain silent." In those words, for perhaps one of the first times since he's been the president, I agree with President Biden. Where he fails is the immediate work to try to disarm the public of the United States, leaving people who could not care about law possessing weapons because they don't care about law, and having an entire group of people out in front of those persons that are disarmed and therefore easy targets. No person in this country, the president continued, should have to live in fear of hate-fueled violence, and no family should grieve the loss of a loved one to bigotry and hate. Police yesterday identified the shooter, who died by shooting himself. He carried an AR-style rifle and a handgun that had swastikas on it. One of the things we don't know is which of the weapons were used in the actual shooting. More details will be coming out on that today. I will keep you informed. We, the people of the United States, have a magnificent country. We have this magnificent country, because we have liberty and freedom. It is cherished by all of us. But with that liberty and freedom comes responsibility. Self-discipline is required for self-government. So do us all a favor. If you know somebody that is a racist, and that person begins arming themselves, etc., spend a little bit more time closer to them and seeing just exactly what's in their mind. And oh, by the way, if you need to learn how to take away a firing pin from a Glock or an AR-15, give me a call. 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. This is the Wells Report. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share. Make sure you give us a thumbs up. Make sure you support this radio broadcast, this podcast, because we kind of like doing it, and we sort of think it's necessary. If you believe that as well, take care of that. There is other information, specifically something of a more cheery nature, that is coming up next. This is the Wells Report.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost. Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA. The only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship.
Call 877-655-6870. That's 877-655-6870. 877-655-6870.
This is the Wells Report. Good morning. Starting another work week. It's Monday, the 28th of August. So, I love coaching Little League Baseball. I love baseball in general. I played beginning age 9 and played until I was 47 years old. And then I started coaching and fell in love with the game all over again. It's great to see young athletes learning how to play this amazingly beautiful game. It's also amazingly funny. It's endlessly entertaining. And that endless entertainment was on display during the Little League World Series. And a Little League team from El Segundo, California, ended up winning the Little League World Series thanks to a guy named Louis Lappy. Louis Lappy is a shortstop for the El Segundo team. And as in Little League baseball games everywhere, nobody's ever out of a game. It's amazing what little kids can do when they play baseball and when they focus and when they come together as a team. It's one of the most satisfying things a coach could ever see. And that's exactly what El Segundo did. After giving up a grand slam the inning before, and that allowed Curacao to tie the game, Louis Lappy came up and took his turn at bat and ended the game in the final inning with a walk-off home run. And check this kid out. I'm taking a little bit of time here, but check this kid out and watch this swing. Okay, here you go. Take a look at this Little League World Series moment.
And this game is over! Louis Lappy does it again! California, your Little League World Series champs on a walk-off home run!
One of the best games, championship game, doesn't even matter, that we've seen here.
What a moment for Louis Lappy. What a game that we just saw here in Williamsport on Championship Sunday.
That swing was perfect. Perfect, right on time. Absolutely perfect swing. The coach on that team did an amazing job with that kid. And the whole team came together and won the Little League World Series. It was another thrilling end to a magnificent tournament in Williamsport. Curacao came back from a 4-run deficit, the top of the fifth, with a grand slam to tie the game 5 apiece. Ultimately, California held off Curacao on the strength of that Louis Lappy home run. He recorded 5 RBIs and allowed 1 run in 5 1/3 innings in the U.S. Championship win against Texas, entering Sunday as the home run leader of the tournament. Curacao had not allowed a home run all tournament, but Lappy changed that with his moonshot in the bottom of the 6th. It was his 5th home run of the tournament. Lappy celebrated by rounding the bases in that unbelievable, unending joy of a Little League baseball player winning a ball game for his team. It was his 5th home run. Like I said, he celebrated rounding the bases. His teammates mobbed him at the plate. So Lappy said this, quote, "My mentality was just to get the next guy up, and if we kept doing that, we would have won either way. But I'll take the homer." Ball players. The championship for El Segundo is the 8th time a California team has won it all, the most of any U.S. team. It's also the first championship for the state since 2011, when Ocean View Little League from Huntington Beach, California, brought home the title, the 5th consecutive tournament a U.S. team has won. Curacao, great ball club. I mean, imagine running the entire tournament without giving up a home run. And then this kid who's literally head and shoulders above his teammates. Just a perfect pass. Just a perfect swing. All the things that Little League coaches teach their players all came together in that amazing moment. It's just incredible. Something tells me we're going to hear this kid's name again. Carney Lansford was a Little League baseball player and a longtime major leaguer, all-star, etc. And Carney Lansford started his baseball career on television in the Little League World Series. Something tells me we haven't seen the last of Louis Lappy celebrating with his teammates. Unbelievable. Congratulations, Louis. Congratulations to El Segundo. And we certainly hope we see a lot more of that that in the future. I didn't coach this age group, 11 through 13, 11 through 12. I coached the older ones, where we moved to 90-foot base paths and watch the wonderment as these kids walk out on these gigantic fields. I always used to tell them, I said, just keep your eyes on this field, because as you continue to play, it's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And sure as heck it did. So congratulations again to El Segundo. Coming up in just a couple of moments on the Wells Report, we're going to spend some time listening to a Ukrainian prosecutor, the same Ukrainian prosecutor that was forced into retirement because he told Ukraine that, this is Joe Biden, told Ukraine that unless they fired this prosecutor, then they weren't going to get $1 billion in U.S. aid. This was while he was vice president. Well, Victor Shokin has decided to start talking, and he did so with Brian Kilmeade on Fox News. The story was picked up by National Pulse, and we will indeed bring that to you when we come back for hour number 2 of the Wells Report. Join us. Pass this show around. We bring you the news, honestly and fairly. I think that's worth a little bit of your time every day. We'll be back in just a little bit as we keep things rolling here for this Monday, August 28th. Year of our Lord 2023. Make sure you give us a call. 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. You can join us on the chat room. We certainly would appreciate your participation there. Otherwise, stick around. Hour number 2 is coming up next.
tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives.
I'm a divorced single mom, and my ex-husband left me and the kids with a lot of unpaid bills, including unpaid taxes. I was really starting to show my stress on my kids because the IRS had sent me a letter demanding a huge payment from me. I couldn't afford it. So then the IRS was threatening to garnish my wages. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. That would have put me over the edge financially.
It truly seemed hopeless, but then a friend at work told her to call the tax relief line.
The people at the tax relief line, they told me about something called innocent spouse relief. They worked it out so that all of the taxes from my ex are not my problem. I don't know how that works, and I don't care. All I care about is that I don't owe the IRS a dime, and they are not going to take my paycheck.
Even if it seems hopeless, you should call the number on your screen right now. There is absolutely no cost for the call or the consultation. You are under no obligation. If you are worried that the IRS could garnish your wages, seize your assets, even take your home, call us right now. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now, you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.
Do you own a timeshare? At first, maybe it seemed like a great investment, but then you realized a lot of the promises made to you were simply not true. A little later, you started receiving the monthly maintenance fees and additional associated bills they failed to mention when you signed the agreement. And now their fees keep rising. Your times to actually use the timeshare keep shrinking, and the resort has no interest in letting you out of the agreement. Your vacation dream has turned into a timeshare nightmare. An overwhelming, never-ending financial obligation that will fall on your children after you're gone. And it seems as if there is no way out. Well, here's some great news. There is a way out. The Timeshare Exit Hotline has helped hundreds of people just like you. Desperate people who thought they were stuck in this burden forever. Although most professionals in the timeshare industry are legitimate, there are those that use aggressive, sometimes even misleading sales tactics to try and trick innocent people into signing their lives away. We've heard many stories of people who have been lied to and others who were kept in a room for over 10 hours, not provided water or anything to eat, pressured until they were exhausted. These people finally signed a contract just to get out of there. If you're one of the unfortunate people who have been roped into a timeshare nightmare and feel there is no way out, call the number on your screen right now. When we take your case, it means we are highly confident that we can win. We'll provide you with an affordable, one-time fixed fee and our 100% client satisfaction guarantee. Now you don't have to face arrogant, aggressive salespeople alone. We're experts in consumer protection, real estate, and contract law. Even if they bullied you into an agreement, rest assured they're not going to bully us. So don't wait. Call us right now. Even if you've tried another company that failed you, call us. Our track record of successful negotiations speaks for itself. The call is free, the information is free, and there is absolutely no obligation. A single phone call could free you of this burden. So don't wait. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline right now. If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. What do? We report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. In short, we de-propagandize the mainstream media. We make commentary which is not news. Commentary is simply opinion, yours and mine, and so we debate. You can do that by calling us 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. You can join us on the chat room. Please, by all means, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, and Patreon. And so, the President of the United States, while Vice President, engaged in what appears to be some very questionable conduct. And part of that conduct involved a trip to Ukraine, where he was responsible during the Obama administration for Ukraine policy. He showed up with $1 billion of U.S. taxpayer money. And he said, unless you fire a prosecutor who was ostensibly working to investigate a company, a natural gas company in Ukraine, where Hunter Biden was a member of the board of directors along with Devin Archer. Unless that prosecutor was fired, that $1 billion was not coming to Ukraine. The president at the time saw fit to fire Viktor Shokin. Shokin has remained silent, at least in American media, until Saturday night, when Fox News' Brian Kilmeade scored this interview and asked Prosecutor Shokin what he thought was going on. It was riveting. It was excellent. And here's a part of that. Here's a part of that interview here for the Wells Report.
I have said repeatedly in my previous interviews that Poroshenko fired me at the insistence of the then Vice President Biden because I was investigating Burisma.
So did President Poroshenko tell you that he wanted you to stay on the job, but there was pressure from Vice President Biden?
You understood me correctly. This is how it was. There were no complaints whatsoever, no problems with how I was performing at my job. But because pressure was repeatedly put on President Poroshenko, that is what ended up in him firing me.
What are your thoughts when you saw the tape of Vice President Biden speaking to the Council on Foreign Relations, saying you had 6 hours to fire you or you're not going to get the $1 billion?
Not only the position of President Poroshenko, the office of President Poroshenko was humiliated, but the entire country of Ukraine was humiliated. And I developed a very firm understanding of the fact that the Vice President was only acting in his own interests. He, generally speaking, handled Ukraine like it was his own backyard. He would put people that were suitable for him. He would arrange for them to be put in certain positions.
Why were you looking into Burisma?
The reason I oversaw the Burisma case was because I was the prosecutor general. Burisma was an ordinary case. There wasn't anything particularly different about it. The reason that I was handling it was because it deserved a special mention. It was on a list of cases to merit special attention because Hunter Biden was involved with Burisma, and of course his father, the vice president, Biden at the time, oversaw Ukraine affairs for the White House. This is why.
Understood. Do you believe they were up to no good? Were they up to doing something corrupt with Burisma? Was the company of Burisma corrupt, as been alleged, in which since has been disbanded?
I have no doubt that there were illegal activities engaged in by Burisma. As a matter of fact, the criminal case had been started before me. It continued to expand. And Zlochevsky, who at the time held the post of minister and was the founder and CEO of Burisma, started bringing in people who could provide protection for him. Hunter Biden was among them. And the corruption network expanded as a result. So, yes, to answer your question, there's no doubt in my mind that Burisma was engaged in illegal activities.
Brilliant interview by Brian Kilmeade. He got to the bottom of that story, did a great interview, bias at a minimum, but asked the right questions. Good for Brian Kilmeade. The article from National Pulse has it this way. The former Ukrainian prosecutor general Viktor Shokin believes that he was fired as a result of President Joe Biden's pressure on the Ukrainian government and said that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden were accepting Ukrainian bribes in connection with Burisma, the Ukrainian holdings firm for which Hunter Biden and his former best friend Devon Archer acted as executives. Shokin was fired in 2016 by then Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko, and that came out in the interview. Shokin went on to explain in that interview, as you just heard, that if he were allowed to continue his investigation into Burisma, they would have uncovered various, quote, corrupt activities that they, the Bidens and Devon Archer, were engaged in, unquote. Asked whether the Bidens were accepting bribes, Shokin responded, "I do not want to deal in unproven facts, but my firm personal conviction is that, yes, this was the case. They were being bribed," unquote. Obviously, this puts more weight behind the allegations against the Biden family. This prosecutor does, however, have perfect motive to try to do anything possible to damage the Bidens. It cost him his job. So when he said that he doesn't want to deal with unproven facts, he's being a prosecutor. I'm not exactly sure that that's what this so-called corrupt prosecutor would have said. And I also have a small problem with the logic error that says that President Joe Biden wanted to remove this so-called corrupt prosecutor to do what? It was well known that Viktor Shokin was indeed investigating Burisma. Does that mean that Joe Biden wanted that investigation to continue, but with someone else less corrupt? That seems to be a logic error in my view. As we sit back and look at it at this particular moment, we go, okay, so President Biden obviously wanted a non-corrupt prosecutor to, when he was vice president, by the way, Vice President Biden wanted a non-corrupt prosecutor to continue with the investigation. Is that what he wanted? And by the way, that new prosecutor, did he continue with the investigation? Apparently not. This brought President Trump back into frame. Remember, he called the president, Zelensky, to talk about whether or not Burisma had been investigated. And they impeached him for it. The Democrat House of Representatives impeached the president for that phone call. Well, which of those two now presidential acts seem to require more investigation. Well, it seems to me that when you have some people from Ukraine discussing the possibilities that there were indeed bribes being taken back and forth from both Ukraine and the Biden family, it seems to me that that deserves an investigation. And indeed, one is happening. Actually, three separate House committees are looking at all of this. The House Oversight and Reforms Committee, the Judiciary Committee, and the House Ways and Means Committee. They have been presenting testimony, not evidence, because that requires vetting in a court of law. But they have been presenting testimony very much like this, that talks about some very disturbing actions then Vice President Joe Biden took while he was vice president. The most important thing here is to not rush to judgment. You have to take this very carefully. This has to be a sober, objective, factual investigation. And so far, that's what we've seen. We are now beginning to get to the part of this where the White House and those people supporting the White House have been willing to slow down the discovery of evidence or discovery of testimony in this particular investigation. If that continues, there will be an impeachment inquiry, because that opens up a whole bunch of other tools for these committees to move forward. However, former President Donald Trump, in a Sunday post on Truth Social, called on House Republicans to commence an impeachment inquiry, accusing President Joe Biden of engaging in corrupt activities. Quote, "The Republicans in Congress, though well-meaning, keep talking about an impeachment inquiry on crooked Joe Biden." This is a quote. "Look, the guy got bribed. He paid people off. He wouldn't give $1 billion to Ukraine unless they got rid of the prosecutor. Biden is a stone-cold crook," he went on to say. "You don't need a long inquiry to prove it. It's already proven. These lowlifes impeached me twice," referring to House Democrats, "and indicted me 4 times for nothing. Either impeach the bum or fade into oblivion," discussing the Republican Party's future. Quote, "They did it to us," unquote. I don't agree with President Trump on this. Once again, I think that the House Republicans are doing a fine job in investigating it. As soon as they are stopped, and this is right around the corner, as soon as they are stopped by the Biden White House, as soon as that information comes to a halt, they've got to start the impeachment inquiry. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has thus, so far, refrained from committing to an impeachment vote or outlining a potential timeline for action. Certain House Republicans are eager to pursue allegations of financial wrongdoing involving Hunter Biden and to target President Biden, according to Spectrum News. Simultaneously, Speaker McCarthy has advocated for the passage of a short-term spending bill aiming to extend government operations beyond the conclusion of September. This approach is likely intended to ensure the continuity of investigations into Hunter Biden. McCarthy's proposals appeal explicitly to conservatives who harbor concerns that a bipartisan agreement with Senate Democrats would not achieve sufficient spending reductions. The temporary measure seeks to provide an interval for negotiating a more comprehensive budget arrangement before mandatory spending reductions, disliked by both parties, come into effect in the upcoming year. Look, we can't go through this again. This being essentially a witch hunt, essentially looking to try to remove a president, a sitting president of the United States, from office based on political contrivance. We can't go through this again. If indeed President Biden was guilty of bribery while vice president, and you can prove it, you have to be able to prove this, then by all means continue the investigation. Because as we sit here at this particular moment, we do not know. And everyone in this country is innocent until proven guilty. I disagree with President Trump in trying to move this forward without all of that proof in place. Impeachments and removal from office of a president require bipartisan assent or consent. And so that's what has to happen next. I'm pretty sure that we're going to see a lot more of this, but now you have more facts to deal with, and I hope you deal with them soberly and objectively and honestly. This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA. The only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship.
Call 877-655-6870. That's 877-655-6870. 877-655-6870.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives.
I'm a divorced single mom, and my ex-husband left me and the kids with a lot of unpaid bills, including unpaid taxes. I was really starting to show my stress on my kids because the IRS had sent me a letter demanding a huge payment from me. I couldn't afford it. So then the IRS was threatening to garnish my wages. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. That would have put me over the edge financially.
It truly seemed hopeless, but then a friend at work told her to call the tax relief line.
The people at the tax relief line, they told me about something called innocent spouse relief. They worked it out so that all of the taxes from my ex are not my problem. I don't know how that works, and I don't care. All I care about is that I don't owe the IRS a dime, and they are not going to take my paycheck.
Even if it seems hopeless, you should call the number on your screen right now. There is absolutely no cost for the call or the consultation. You are under no obligation. If you are worried that the IRS could garnish your wages, seize your assets, even take your home, call us right now. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now, you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.
Good morning. Monday in progress. Boy, those weekends get shorter every time, don't they? They just get shorter and shorter. What is going on? I do have to tell you, we have been broiling in Texas this summer. We have had relatively mild summers for the past couple of years. Well, Texas summer came back this year and made itself incredibly apparent. It was almost like the first day of June. When June hits, we start baking. And man, temperatures over the weekend here reached 111 degrees. Outside right now, it's a very pleasant, about 81. It's perfect. It's nice. And I am just very happy that that's happening. This is the Wells Report. Political advisors to both President Biden and Vice President Harris are annoyed with not just Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, not just California Governor Gavin Newsom, but of course with Fox News as well. Why? Well, because there's a planned debate between Governor Newsom and Governor DeSantis that is upcoming on Fox News. Quote, "It's disrespectful," an outside advisor to Vice President Kamala Harris said, according to a report from NBC News yesterday. Joe Biden is running with Kamala Harris. That's the Democrat ticket. Who needs a primary? Okay. The advisor is one of several in the Biden-Harris orbit that have begun to view Newsom as a nuisance. This, according to the report, in part because the California governor's planned debate with DeSantis is something that the White House just doesn't believe should happen. While many Biden advisors no longer see Newsom as a potential primary challenger to the president, they do believe the planned debate would carry more risks than rewards. I think this is just creative interpretation on my part. The debate, which is slated to be televised on Fox News and hosted by Sean Hannity, has the potential to make some voters believe that Newsom is running a shadow campaign against the president in 2024. The debate comes at a time when many Democrat voters have expressed a desire for a change at the top of the ticket. The debate has been viewed in even more negative lights by those in Harris's orbit, Vice President Harris's orbit, with some reportedly seeing it as an attempt by the Florida governor to position himself ahead of the vice president for the 2028 Democrat presidential primary. I've got to say it. Every broadcast that I do with the Wells Report, every single broadcast puts me ahead of Vice President Kamala Harris for the vice presidency of the United States. But then again, you know, there are people out there that mow lawns for a living. Okay. I'm sorry. But the Democrat Party has a major, major problem. They do. Joe Biden is not equipped to be the president of the United States now, let alone in the future. And there are a lot of people that are pointing this out. And the Democrat Party has got to move on. People say in the Republican Party all the time that the Republican Party simply must move on from President Trump. The Democrat Party simply must move on from Joe Biden. They will lose this election if they do not. They don't have any other choice. The man can barely walk. He has yet to have an event in public where you could even consider the fact that he is ready for a continued presidency. He has not had one in recent times, the last couple of months, where he hasn't screwed up in some way, shape, or form. And this is beyond just Joe Biden, the gaffe machine. He's in Hawaii with the families at not a luau, because luau's are celebrations, but at a family gathering of the families of those people lost in Lahaina. And he fell asleep. The president needs to sit down. He needs to do so immediately. And there are an awful lot of people that are very concerned as to who would stand up if Joe Biden sits down, specifically Vice President Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is a liability as well. We'll talk more about that in a moment. This is the Wells Report.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA. the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship.
Call 877-655-6870. That's 877-655-6870. 877-655-6870.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives.
I'm a divorced single mom, and my ex-husband left me and the kids with a lot of unpaid bills, including unpaid taxes. I was really starting to show my stress on my kids because the IRS had sent me a letter demanding a huge payment from me. I couldn't afford it. So then the IRS was threatening to garnish my wages. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. That would have put me over the edge financially.
It truly seemed hopeless, but then a friend at work told her to call the tax relief line.
The people at the tax relief line, they told me about something called innocent spouse relief. They worked it out so that all of the taxes from my ex are not my problem. I don't know how that works, and I don't care. All I care about is that I don't owe the IRS a dime, and they are not going to take my paycheck.
Even if it seems hopeless, you should call the number on your screen right now. There is absolutely no cost for the call or the consultation. You are under no obligation. If you are worried that the IRS could garnish your wages, seize your assets, even take your home, call us right now. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now, you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. Hi, John David Wells at your service. Thanks for joining us this morning. We all know that our schools are in big trouble. And they are indeed in big trouble, as I've said. As a matter of fact, they are. But there are a couple of stories out of Colorado that you need to be aware of. And they're disturbing. Let's get to that news. This from Fox. A Colorado public school diversity teacher said in private emails she was struggling with the urge not to, quote, burn things down, which did not represent equity, according to records reviewed by Fox News Digital. Casey Menninger is a diversity teacher in Jefferson County Public School District's Foster K-8 school. Menninger was involved in crafting the curriculum for other teachers to present to their classes. Menninger wanted classes to be focused on bad things done by white people. Quote, I will have a quick presentation for 8th grade in the next couple of weeks. I just want them to work on some of the communication skills and understand some terrible things white people did, she said in an email dated January 2022. The emails, obtained by a public record request, showed that staff were not completely on board with the equity class, and they were talking trash about those classes, as you might expect. The meetings are very difficult, said in an email dated August 2021. I'm trying to impact change in a positive way, but it's very hard not to want to burn things down that I don't find equitable. That's a quote. And then blasted staff for not having an equity lens. I'm learning a lot about restraint. I don't think anyone else on this team has that equity lens, so it is challenging to impact change where they don't see a need. I'm also trying to learn how to respond to emotional outbursts from adults. It's difficult. I don't like it. I'm struggling with non-so-subtle shots at me. I've heard people talking trash about me multiple times already. The email was addressed to Nicole Head, who was also involved in working with the mandatory DEI class. You may not always love the content, yet you're asked to represent the class as their teacher anyway. I imagine many or all of you have held back on giving me feedback for fear of offending me or sounding judgmental. I've also chosen to hold back on feedback. I often felt either unsupported or completely out of touch with how this class was going for your students. Now we've arrived at conflict's door. I'm hoping against hope that we can use this as an opportunity to grow stronger as a team instead of becoming divided. I'm hoping we can use it to practice healthy, productive conflict instead of drowning in feelings of being misunderstood or underappreciated. I feel strongly that the missing link is an assumption of positive intent. I'm willing to do the work and receive the feedback from you that it would take to get us there. The district and Menninger did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is a synonym for critical race theory. Those people who say critical race theory is not being taught only need to look at DEI curricula around the country. That's not the only story coming out of Colorado regarding this particular kind of subject. A Marxist teacher, also from Colorado, is calling for a forceful cultural revolution against whiteness. And that's a quote. He was voted in by Democrats to fill an open state House of Representative seats on Saturday. Tim Hernandez is the name of this guy. He was selected as a state representative for the Denver area on Saturday by a committee of Democrats tasked with filling the vacant seat after his incumbent, Serena Gonzalez Gutierrez, was elected to the Denver City Council. This begs the question, could this guy have been elected by the people instead of appointed by Democrats? I often say that the problem with America at this particular moment is we're electing the wrong people. We're electing politicians instead of Americans. There are Democrats that are Americans. Most Democrats are Americans. But then there are Democrats who are progressives, which is a slang term for socialists. And this Marxist is now a part of the Colorado State Assembly. Tim Hernandez was selected as a state representative for the Denver area by a committee of Democrats tasked with filling the vacant seat. Hernandez worked at Aurora West Preparatory Academy in the Aurora Public Schools District, according to his website, or its website. The staff list has since been scrubbed. It was unclear if he continues to work in that district. A sign in his classroom called for, quote, dismantling white systems, unquote. Fox News previously found that Hernandez went on a Marxist diatribe at a protest organized by unions. I want to tear some S-word up and out for you. Are you ready? What I think is happening in our schools, what I think is showing up in my classroom is a lot of the things that we get into ideological circles up here. We like to compete with who knows Marx better, who knows these things better, who is a Leninist. Listen, all right, I'll give you the real take on this S word. Kids don't care. Kids don't care. It wasn't enough to preach communist theory. It had to be put into practice, said Hernandez. Yes, it's important to know theory, but you have to do some practices. You have to get out into the streets. You have to get into your workplace. You have to go to your families. If we're just sitting talking in an ideological circle, our kids are still going to schools that are underfunded, where they are investing more in their failure than in their success. Your communist theory will not save you. The revolution will happen in the hood. It will not be led by those who understand Lenin best. It will not be led by the deepest Marxists. The revolution will be led by the people. And I say all of this because I'm a teacher. A cultural revolution, huh? That harkens back to Maoist leadership of China, the great step forward. Before I went on the air today, I spent an awful lot of time researching just exactly what the Cultural Revolution cost China. It cost them 2 generations of progress. That's thing number one. It also cost them anywhere between 30 and 200 million Chinese. Mao was an epic murderer, very much like Stalin. They believe that Stalin was responsible for the deaths of some 20 million Russians. And it's all because of this very same ideology. So, a couple of different things. A committed Marxist was once teaching kids in Colorado schools. Unbelievable. Then we back that story up with this one from USA Today. Distance, cost, curriculum, educators. These factors and countless others are what drive American parents to choose one type of schooling for their kids over another. And once the pandemic shattered the steady rhythm of in-person learning, even more parents found themselves wanting an option outside the public school system. Public school enrollment dipped by nearly 3% nationwide from 2019 through 2020. It has not rebounded. Though declining birth rates and immigration patterns were projected to cut into the population long before the pandemic, homeschooling has surged. And though it has dipped some since the height of enrollment, the option is still more popular than before COVID-19. Charter schools gained and retained hundreds of thousands of students. National data showcasing private school enrollment predates the pandemic, but some surveys suggest enrollment increased at these institutions as well. Other options, such as learning pods, which are grouped together as few as 3 students, are also showing that they have staying power. At the same time, school choice advocates are capitalizing on parent dissatisfaction with public schools to create new alternatives to traditional education. Some of that disaffection spawned during remote teaching at the start of the pandemic. Several states this year passed legislation that entitles every children's family to use public funds for essentially any option. In Oklahoma, for example, legislators in May passed a bill granting all state students school choice options. Parents can receive up to $7,500 in tax credits for their children to attend the school of their choice beginning in January. Parents who homeschool their children can also receive up to $1,000 per child in a tax credit for school-related costs. Lawmakers in Arizona, Florida, and Iowa adopted legislation that either implements new school choice programs or expands existing ones. Parents are taking states up on their offer, even as critics worry there is too little accountability for the money that goes along with them. Schools are in deep, deep trouble. Parents have had enough. The left is losing. The left is losing. A May survey from the National School Choice Awareness Foundation of 2,483 parents with kids in school found nearly 46% of them, quote, plan to send at least one of their children to a new school this fall. More than half of those school-switching parents say they want better or safer education environments for their children. The group advises parents to consider a variety of factors, including a school's learning environment and their child's strengths and weaknesses when choosing a school. Ahead of the new school year, USA Today spoke with families about the routes they chose. Charter schools are independently run public schools. Some specialize in programs encompassing science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM, international studies, arts education, or other subjects. Others mimic traditional public schools. School officials can decide who they hire, what they teach, and what students they accept. Many have lottery systems, require parents to join waiting lists before enrolling. The schools are accountable to state or local education boards and are required to have a charter agreement renewed every few years. Reeve Mora, a mom of 3 children from New Mexico, decided during the pandemic that a charter school was right for her family. 2 of her kids attended Corrales International School in Albuquerque, which focuses on international studies. Compared with the public school her kids attended before the pandemic, Morris said the charter her kids go to now has smaller class sizes. The teachers there are able to work more closely with her family because of it. Prior to the pandemic, she applied to several charter schools, received an acceptance letter for one in March of 2020. Her kids continued with traditional public education during the distance learning for the rest of the 2019-2020 school year, then shifted to the charter school in the 2020-2021 school year. So, public schools in deep trouble. People are noticing, specifically 2024 Republican presidential candidates. In The Hill today, they are discussing multiple Republican presidential candidates, making it clear that the Department of Education is in danger if they are elected. In other words, if Republicans take over the presidency and the House of Representatives and the Senate, etc., then what will happen is that, the Department of Education is on the chopping block. Let's shut down the head of the snake, the Department of Education, said Vivek Ramaswamy. Take that $80 billion, put it in the hands of parents around the country. Conservatives see the department, which has more than 4,400 employees and in its current form dates back to 1979, after the first being established in 1867, as a prime example of Washington meddling in American lives. The time has come to shut down the Federal Department of Education, said former Vice President Mike Pence. But The Hill asks, what would that mean? Killing the Department of Education would be easier said than done. Conservatives have said that since the creation of the department, they want to get rid of it, from President Ronald Reagan and his education secretary to President Trump and his own. Republicans have decried the department's existence, but have failed to abolish it. This, by the way, is another example of what I keep talking about when it comes to Republicans. They spend an awful lot of time talking about really good things, and they don't spend an awful lot of time actually following up on their words. That is the prime reason why I fired the Republican Party. I'm done with the Republican Party. Absolutely done. As I've said, we have one political party that operates in spite of the American people. We have another political party that simply ignores the American people. And I'm talking about their deeds, not their words. At least one of those political parties is honest. Absolutely honest and open. They tell you exactly that they do not agree with America. They think that there's definite need for change in this nation. And they put it right out there in front of you, ably assisted by the mainstream media. We don't do that here. We report the facts. The public schools are losing. And it's because of teachers' unions and the Department of Education and the mainstream media all coming together to destroy the childhood education of our kids. And they have succeeded to the point where parents are saying, okay, we're done. This is another one of these executive branch agencies that believe their regulations are actually laws. And this is another reason why the Congress has to vote individually on every regulation being imposed on the American people by executive branch agencies. Roll call votes. So we know who votes for which regulation. It's time to hold everyone in Washington accountable for these abuses of the American public by executive branch agencies. And it's time for you to get your kids out of public schools. That's just my opinion. Just my opinion. If I had a child of school age, that's exactly what I would be doing. This is the Wells Report.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost. Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship.
Call 877-655-6870. That's 877-655-6870. 877-655-6870.
Good morning. Welcome to the Wells Report. Excuse me. I want to tell you that if you find value in this broadcast, please, by all means, subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Pass it around to your friends. Share this broadcast and the links to it. It's worthy of your time, in my humble opinion, and I certainly hope that's your opinion, and if so, please do all those things. Subscribe, give us a thumbs up, a like, if you will. There's also an opportunity for you to get a notification so that when we are on the air, you know. And we'd like you to do that too. Ring the bell. Thanks very much for that wonderful opportunity for me to ask you to share this broadcast with your friends. He was a game show host, but he was much, much more. Arguably, Bob Barker was a Renaissance man. He did an awful lot more than just standing in front of a television audience, in front of the white-hot glare of television lights and cameras. He hosted The Price is Right for 35 35 years. 35 years. And we lost him over the weekend. We lost him over the weekend because of natural causes. CBS has a wonderful broadcast. It's CBS Sunday Morning. And recently, they told us an awful lot about Bob Barker.
One of the icons of American television has died. For nearly 40 years, Bob Barker hosted The Price is Right here on CBS, developing a one-of-a-kind following and fan base with devoted viewers ranging from retirees to new parents to kids homesick from school. His successor, Drew Carey, posted an old image with Barker with a message that he's brokenhearted. Barker's work grew to include more than just taking contestant bids and making Americans laugh, as CBS's Carter Evans reports.
Here's the star of the new Price is Right, Bob Barker.
For more than 5 decades, Bob Barker ruled the game show universe. First 20 years as host of the classic,
Truth or Consequences.
Followed by 35 years of The Price is Right, the longest, most acclaimed run in game show history. And the contestants were just as memorable.
I had a dream about you, so I had to come down here.
What were we doing in the dream?
You were chasing me in the hayloft.
Most were enthusiastic, some over-enthusiastic.
I said, I want to kiss you.
My dear, that can be a... Oh, wow! Yes, all right.
But Bob Barker's real passion was animal rights.
I began to be aware of the terrible mistreatment and exploitation of animals in our country, in the world, as a matter of fact. And I just felt compelled to try to do what I could do.
He testified in Washington on the plight of captive elephants and closed his final show with the same simple plea he had done thousands of times before.
And please remember, help control the pet population. Have your pets spayed or neutered. Goodbye, everybody.
How would I like to be remembered? As a man who tried to treat others as he would have them treat him. Since he couldn't help all living things, chose animals and did what he could for them. Also that he did audience participation shows for a long time on television.
Carter Evans, CBS News, Hollywood.
Tonight, CBS released a statement in part saying during his 35 years as host of The Price is Right, Bob made countless people's dreams come true and everyone feel like a winner when they were called to come on down.
The great Bob Barker. I remember as a little kid in the mountains of western North Carolina watching Truth or Consequences. Our family would gather around the television to see the amazing things that Bob Barker did with that broadcast. And then when he started doing The Price is Right, the just incredible professional ease at which he moved through his job. It actually enchanted me to the point where, for a very long time, I was looking forward to being a game show host. As a matter of fact, I had a chance to audition for a game show that actually didn't make the air, starring Mark Wahlberg. That was, I was brought up for that. I was going to be the incredibly professional sounding announcer saying, and now, here's Mark Wahlberg. And in a rare moment, I did talk like that. Okay, that's not the way. I have a complete... Anyway, Bob Barker was a guy who easily will be an icon of American television as long as people watch television, as long as people talk about it. I found out this morning that Bob Barker won not just one, not just 5, not just 10, but 19 Emmy Awards. Not bad for a game show host, but he was more than that. He truly was. Funny, witty, and as I said, a Renaissance man. One of his passions was martial arts. He was a movie actor. He did just about everything. Very, very, very well. It is with profound sadness we announce the world's greatest MC who ever lived. Bob Barker has left us. Roger Neal shared that this morning. Neal said that Barker died of natural causes at his home in the Hollywood Hills and was survived by his longtime partner, Nancy Burnett. And Nancy had some wonderful words you can find on the NBC website under the Today Show tab. Make sure you read that today. We're going to miss Bob Barker. We are. The executive producer of this broadcast is Dirk Steele. The associate producer and publicist is Jube Dankworth. You can find her at netmediaconsultants.com. If you need publicity, Jube is the one you need to call. I'm John David Wells. Have a great Monday. Okay. All right, you guys. Thanks very much, beloved people watching on the stream. Take good care. Have yourself a great day. Be safe. Make good decisions. And I'll see you again tomorrow morning at 9 Central Time.